that they exploited the Spanish, they exploited the Hello, my name is Sandy and welcome to my channel. I'm going to divide my video into 3 parts. The first will be the historical background. For example, Robert Penn Warren said, "History cannot give us a program for the future, but it can give us a fuller understanding of ourselves and our common humanity so that we can better face the future. Looking back at history will help us understand the present." The second part will be focusing on how colorism is still being perpetuated. Lastly, I will conclude my video by explaining how to better address the issues of colorism. With that being said, let's get on with the video. So let's look at the historical background of colorism. So it first began with the Spanish conquistadores. They arrived in the Caribbean islands and they encountered several indigenous people, including the Tainos. Then came along Hernán Cortés, who led expeditions against the Aztecs in 1519. So the Spanish people brought their diseases to these lands, which caused massive amount of deaths. The indigenous people's population was declining because of the diseases they had brought, which led them to look elsewhere, which is slavery. My next point involves the system of stratification, which was put in place in many Latin American countries. This is one of the examples of how European ideologies seeped into these lands and shaped the landscape as well as the people. Their placement basically determined their power and their privilege. The higher you were up, the better you were off. And it, in essence, was like a scale of how white you are, because the whiter you were, the better off you were. Right here says, it is an ideology where everyone was deemed of mixed descent, and was one of the main strategies that the Spaniards used to de-emphasize privileges associated with phenotypically white characteristics. Another thing is that Mestizaje was basically used to erase public discourse of being inferior, of inferiority. And this reminds me of the Emancipation Proclamation, because the Emancipation Proclamation proclaimed that Black people were free, but didn't give any rules as to how they would be set free. Nothing else beyond that. And the issue with that was, for example, Juneteenth, where people didn't even know they were free for 2 whole years. Another example is slaves did not have money. They couldn't earn money. What did they do? They had to get into debt in order to get, tools and land. This just led to more debt, which led to Black people basically being in bad condition. And Mestizaje, in a way, kind of reminds me of that, because it's saying that everyone is equal, but it's not addressing the issues of inequality. Also, a thing that is very interesting to me is that it was to erase public discourse of being inferior, to kind of evade the blame, because white people had been on top for a very long time, but it was just to like, hey, let's forget there's a caste system, we don't see it. But that's not how it works. Just because you say you don't see it does not mean it doesn't exist. It doesn't mean that colorism hasn't already penetrated into the society. It still exists and it's still there, besides actually addressing those issues, and that wasn't done. Instead, these issues actually ended up getting worse. My last point for the historical background is Blanqueamiento. So Blanqueamiento is a social, political, and economic practice used in many post-colonial countries in Americas and Oceania to improve the race towards a supposed ideal of whiteness. The term Blanqueamiento is rooted in Latin America and is used more or less synonymously with racial whitening. Overall, the arrival of the Spaniards, which brought their ideas such as stratification, as well as ideas/statements of Mestizaje, and the implementations of Blanqueamiento in many Latin American countries, caused colorism to be ingrained into those communities. These ideas are still apparent in today's society, and this shows that a broader conversation needs to happen. The next clip is an interview from VLADTV with Amara la Negra. It is a great interview with lots of interesting information, which I highly recommend watching. I'm only going to show a small portion of the 8-part interview, but if you would like to check it out, the interview links are in the description box down below.
A lot of Latinos can be very racist amongst their own community. You know, you could be my cousin, and if you're 2 shades lighter than me, I'm not as black as you are. Wait a second. As if that's an issue. So one of the things that I get all the time is like, oh my God, you're so pretty for being a black girl. Or, you know, you have such great features. Don't get married to no black man with like a big nose and big lips. And they're going to mess up your children type of thing, as if that's a problem.
In the interview, she talks about some issues within the Latin community. She also talks about how colorism has affected her family dynamic. Amara la Negra makes an emphasis on how Latinos don't like to talk about these types of issues that persist within the community. I like how she points this out because she is starting a conversation that in many instances has been ignored. Some of the reasons that this type of conversation has been ignored and has not been talked about is due to things such as misinformation that has been perpetuated by people, history, the media, books, mainly history books. These are the ideas that have been rooted in things such as Mestizaje, which has led many people to believe ideas such as that every Latino is mixed race, essentially ignoring the issues of the community, such as colorism. Another of these ideas is Blanqueamiento, which has given way to ideas that continue to live on. Most notably majorar la Raza, which gives a preference to white features. Amara la Negra also addresses the preferences of certain features that fall in line with ideas of Eurocentrism. She talked about how others would say to her how she shouldn't get with a black man since that will ruin the race. These phrases have become so normalized in our society. These words and phrases are just ingrained into our vocabulary, which shows that these issues are very much rooted into our society, stemming all the way back to the time of the conquistadores, who brought these ideas of white superiority to these lands. Lastly, I'm going to make my conclusion short. To discuss these issues of colorism, we need to understand the differences of different people within the Latin community. Not only things such as color, country, but also class. The reason for this is because these things affect the way people perceive the world due to the experiences they have gone through. Knowing this, we must use this to better understand others and where they came from. Tackling an issue such as colorism isn't easy. Instead, it is uncomfortable. We as a community must learn to see past our uncomfortability. Like that, we can have conversations about the issues within our community. Because to solve an issue, you must first believe there is an issue and know that it is an issue. The only way we as a community can make progress is to address these issues amongst our family members, friends, and others. Thank you so much for watching. Comment down below your opinion. What did you think about this video, and what are your thoughts on colorism? Please don't forget to hit that like button if you like this video, and subscribe button if you would like to see more videos like this one. Also, please don't forget to hit that notification bell. Once again, thank you so much for watching. It means a lot to me. And stay safe, y'all.